Depending on whether you're watching this video on the main article website or on YouTube, either Hillbilly Elegy will be releasing tomorrow on Netflix or will have released early last week. Either way, guess what we're talking about this week. Hillbilly Elegy belongs to a rich subgenre of movies that explore the experience of the white rural class in America today. It's worth singling out a couple here, including, say, Deborah Granick's Winter's Bone, which helped launch the career of Jennifer Lawrence, David Mackenzie's Hell or High Water, which features a fantastic performance from Chris Pine, Nia DaCosta's wonderful Little Woods, with fantastic performances from Tessa Thompson and Lily James. Even this year alone, Chloe Zhao's Nomadland is a major awards contender, while Annabella Antalicio's Mickey and the Bear has been sorely overlooked and is well worth your time if you can find it on a streaming service. Unfortunately, Hillbilly Elegy is not one of those great studies. Hillbilly Elegy feels like the most cynical example of the genre, serving as a potential awards vehicle for actors Glenn Close and Amy Adams. Adams in particular has cultivated a narrative similar to the one that followed her Catch Me If You Can co-star Leonardo DiCaprio in the early part of the last decade, that of a generational talent who has seen much of her best work consistently ignored by awards bodies. Films such as Arrival, Nocturnal Animals, and yeah, I'm gonna go there, The Muppets. Quick sidebar here. The prospect of Adams finally taking home a long-deserved Academy Award for her work on Hillbilly Elegy feels like it belongs in the rich tradition of the Academy giving awards to deserving artists for undeserving works, including giving the Oscar to Martin Scorsese for his work on The Departed instead of for Goodfellas, finally giving Al Pacino his Best Actor Oscar for his work on Scent of a Woman instead of any of his 70s or even early 80s output, giving Leonardo DiCaprio his Oscar for The Revenant instead of almost literally any other movie in which he'd starred, and giving the Oscar to Nicolas Cage for his work on Leaving Las Vegas instead of Vampire's Kiss.
I never misspelled anything! Not once, not one time!
End sidebar. There are a lot of problems with Hillbilly Elegy, many of which have been articulated at length by people who are far more qualified than me to explore the book and the film's weird voyeuristic fascination with white poverty. As I joked back when we established this is not a review show. We're not talking about whether something's good or bad, we're talking about an interesting aspect of it as it relates to pop culture. Therefore, we're going to focus on one very particular misfire within Hillbilly Elegy. Hillbilly Elegy builds its central metaphor around Terminator 2 Judgment Day, somehow without understanding Terminator 2 Judgment Day. Because Hillbilly Elegy is constructed as an inspirational mass-market piece intended to leave its audience feeling happy and comfortable that they've just watched something of material value, the movie features an upbeat central metaphor that feels like it's asking to be embroidered on an elderly relative's throw cushion. Think of the Two Wolves story from Tomorrowland, or the title character insisting that life is like a box of chocolates in Forrest Gump, or the cigarette-smoking man in The X-Files, also suggesting that life is like a box of chocolates, but in a slightly less inspirational kind of way.
Cheap, thoughtless, perfunctory gift that nobody ever asks for.
The film's big motivational speech comes from the protagonist's grandmother, named Mama, and played by Glenn Close. Using Terminator 2 Judgment Day as a metaphor, Mama helpfully explains that life is best parsed through the imagery of time-traveling killing machines.
Everyone in this world is one of three kinds. Good Terminator, a bad Terminator, and neutral.
Are you a good witch or a bad witch?
It's worth pausing to contemplate what exactly Mama means by a neutral Terminator. I couldn't help but think that maybe Mama had seen a glimpse into the future, watched Dark Fate, and perhaps come away with a strong opinion about Carl's drapery service.
There was this one customer that came to me. He wanted to have solid colored drapes in a little girl's room. I said, don't do it.
When JD suggests that Mama is a good Terminator, she replies, I wasn't always. I had to learn. You could be too, if you don't fuck it up. How inspirational. How heartwarming. At its core, Hillbilly Elegy is a story of the work that JD puts into becoming a good Terminator. He studies hard at school, he calls out his drug-addicted mother Bev when she does things like let her health insurance lapse. As his mother spirals deeper into drug dependency, implicitly due to use of the opioids at the hospital where she works, JD comes out the other side of his own experience with the gateway drug of marijuana with a stronger sense of resolve. While Mama eventually takes away JD from his mother Bev and instills in him the virtue of hard work, the film suggests that JD is consistently more empathic and more compassionate than the people around him. He is introduced in flashback as a child caring for a wounded turtle that older teenagers want to peel out of its shell and kill. JD repeatedly discovers that he is on his own. At one point, Mama assures him, "You always got me," only for JD to come home and find her collapsed in the very next scene. Later, his sister Lindsay pleads, "Don't make us your excuse, JD." In the film's closing moments, JD explains that his own success escaping the environment in which he grew up, and his own path to becoming a successful lawyer and venture capitalist, is really a triumph for his family's shared legacy. If anything, this arc recalls the broad strokes of John Connor within the Terminator franchise, rather than any individual Terminator, whether good or bad. In the Terminator, John is established as mankind's only hope, while Sarah Connor is defined by her role as mother to the man who will save mankind. At a distance, there might be echoes of JD's self-narrated arc in the idea of a son of a waitress who ultimately becomes a messiah figure. Of course, it's still an extremely odd metaphor to use for the story of a young man seeking to leave behind a life of rural poverty, but at least it almost fits. However, Hillbilly Elegy doesn't compare JD to John. It doesn't make reference to the Terminator. Mama is clearly watching Terminator 2 Judgment Day, and the reference to the idea of a good Terminator explicitly references the heroic T-800 played by Arnold Schwarzenegger in Terminator 2 Judgment Day. However, unlike Mama, the T-800 did not learn to be a good Terminator. It was explicitly reprogrammed from an unstoppable killing machine to an unstoppable bodyguard that occasionally did things like shoot people in the kneecaps. The Terminator was not an exceptional creation, but a product of its programming. Notably, the Terminator in Judgment Day never tries to fight its programming or to escape its obligations to John Connor. As with director James Cameron's Aliens, Judgment Day is essentially the story of a constructed nuclear family unit, with the Terminator coming to serve as a surrogate father figure to John. In that sense, again, the dysfunctional family dynamics of Hillbilly Elegy echo Judgment Day. As Sarah Connor narrates,
"It would never leave him, and it would never hurt him, never shout at him or get drunk and hit him, and it would die to protect him."
This provides a sharp contrast to Hillbilly Elegy, where the story is driven not so much by the reconstruction of a dysfunctional family dynamic as much as the escape from one. The flashbacks that drive so much of Hillbilly Elegy are largely anchored in a plot thread that finds an adult JD forced to return home after his mother has a heroin overdose and then racing to get back to the city in time for a job interview that offers the chance of a better future. While JD spends so much of Hillbilly Elegy desperate to escape the family with which he's found himself, the Terminator in Judgment Day commits himself to supporting the Connors. At John's command, he breaks Sarah out of custody and reunites her with John. At the climax, the Terminator even sacrifices himself to protect the future and hopefully spare John the burden of having to become the messianic figure in this war against the machines. As with many great sequels, Judgment Day challenges and inverts the expectations of the Terminator. The original film suggested that John was destined to be a great man of history, a figure of monumental importance in the future of mankind. In contrast, Judgment Day introduces John as a petty criminal and delinquent teenager.
Fuck you, you little dipshit!
Did you call moi a dipshit?
The film emphasizes the importance of the people around him, like Sarah and the T-800, in helping John to grow into the man that he needs to be, even one free of the burden of being mankind's shared legacy. Crucially, the T-800's character arc is built on his evolving empathy, his growing understanding of the people around him.
I know now why you cry, but it's something I can never do.
What defines the T-800 as a good Terminator is not its own self-interest or self-advancement, not the fact that it seeks to escape its obligations or advance its own desires. Instead, the T-800 finds humanity in its empathy for others, in knowing why John cries, not in crying itself. The character and thematic arcs in Hillbilly Elegy are sharply opposed to those in Judgment Day. While Judgment Day is a story about what people owe to others and the necessity of reconciling and understanding an unconventional family unit while facing systemic problems like an inescapable robot apocalypse, Hillbilly Elegy is the story about an individual seeking to escape the tangled mess of obligations that they might owe to the people around them in order to pursue their own dreams. This fundamental misunderstanding of Judgment Day might not be the worst thing about Hillbilly Elegy, but it speaks to the general shoddiness of the film around it. At one point, JD asks Mama how many times she's seen the movie.
Oh, about 100.
Maybe the production team could do with watching it just once more and paying a little more attention. I've been Darren Mooney, and this was In the Frame.